All right, so welcome everyone. Good to see you today. Today is a very special show. We have a guest today. It's LaurenVanVajra, and she is a certified hypnotherapist who coaches women in embodied spirituality. And so welcome, Lauren. Thanks so much for doing this. Good to see you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Good, good. And so today we're talking about dating in dystopia.
Whoa. And what particularly do we mean by that?
Yeah, well, it's a lot about having to do with, post-pandemic dating and also just the rise in dating apps and also the rise in the feelings of disconnect. A recent Harvard study showed that 36% of all Americans experience extreme loneliness on a regular basis. This is like, either ongoing throughout the day or many times a week. And so it's an epidemic of loneliness that we're facing in this country. And the solution, many people are searching for ways to connect with people, and dating apps have become one of the most popular ways for Americans to do that. And it's all over the world as well. But they're causing, some issues with how we relate to one another, how we connect, how we see each other as actual people, human beings, or do we just see them as a number, a rank, or an object to possess?
I agree. I think dating apps kind of like just commodify the whole experience of, I guess, dating.
Yeah, well, there are for-profit companies that run these dating apps, so it would make sense that that's what their purpose is. And their ultimate aim, obviously, is to make a profit for providing a service. But the service they're providing, is it actually giving us what we're hoping to get? Or is it like ever deepening the divide?
I would say it's probably deepening the divide. I feel like a lot of people go on dating apps with the expectation of having a hellish experience because of everything that they've heard. It's a pretty common topic. I've been in Ubers where the Uber driver was telling me about like his previous person in the car was talking about their dating horror story. So everybody talks about it. So I really think that very few people go into online dating with the expectation that it's going to be a really good experience.
Okay, so they're already seeing the worst possibility as they go in, so that's definitely not helpful. Although some people do have success. I know I have some friends who have met on dating apps, and I know other people who claim to be enjoying their time on dating apps. Although I personally did not have that experience. There was a time I guess it was about a year and a half ago when I went down that road for a month or two to kind of see what it was about and see if I could make some connections there. And my experience was less than enthusiastic, let's put it that way. I just found that there was an inordinate amount of fake people, fake profiles, bots, scammers, and then the people that I matched with for whatever reason, I didn't really find a whole lot of people that I wanted to swipe right on in the first place that were in my, that were coming in as my matches, but then the ones that I did connect with, even if I spoke to them in chat or whatever, it was strained and it was difficult to make a connection. And ultimately, what I found in my experience was that it was like sucking up an inordinate amount of my time. It was making me feel, right? It was addictive, and it was making me feel all these feelings that upon further and deeper examination, I realized were not genuine. Like the excitement that I would get when I got a match and maybe texted with someone, it was like this false sense of excitement. It wasn't the same as if I, let's say, met someone at a party and we exchanged numbers. That's a real excitement that I experienced, but the dating app experience seemed to be pumped up. I don't know, but you spent some time on the apps as well, didn't you?
Yeah, a very short amount of time. I had been broken up with my last partner for about a year, and I was working on some manifestation of bringing in a partner. And when I was thinking about joining the dating apps, I was definitely, my masculine was fighting my feminine. Like, I thought that I had to do something in order to like make this happen.
Force it,
because
yeah.
I rarely leave my house unless it's to go to work. So I just kept telling myself, well, how can I call in this person if I never leave my house, right?
Unless you're going to date the FedEx guy, right?
Yeah, yeah. Or the Amazon guy, or, you know, the guy that drops off my water.
Yeah. Most likely
So my options were...
He's probably already taken though, you know?
They probably are.
Meeting people every day.
So yeah, I just kept telling myself that I had to take action and do something, and that I shouldn't knock the dating apps until I tried. But I knew deep down my feminine was like, come on, just be open. You know, there's no conscious men on there.
You know, that was kind of my thoughts too, was that as I began to examine this, and I started to ask myself, you know, like, why am I on this app? Well, you know, on the surface, it seemed like some good reasons. It was in the middle of the pandemic. It was, you know, I lived in a very rural area, so there wasn't a lot going on in my community for me to connect with people. And so with those things, like, well, this maybe will be a way to branch out more. And, you know, even if I don't make a romantic connection, maybe I'll make a friend who will lead to something later on. And I think ultimately what I realized was that the majority of people, and this is just my own opinion, so, you know, if you guys are out there on dating apps, don't take this personally. I'm not speaking about you. This is for you to ask yourself and do some inner investigation. But what I've discovered was that the people that I encountered, and even myself, my own self, I was feeling some of this, if I'm honest, some insecurity. And so I find that, you know, a lot of the people that I interact with and a lot of what I see in people's profiles is just touting this extreme insecurity. And it's like seeking the validation for that. But it was not just insecure people. I saw some people who didn't seem to project insecurity at all, but they did seem to project an air of very shallowness, like no depth. You know, pictures of your ass or like your profile pic, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, what are you seeking? You know, what are you really wanting out of this interaction? You want attention, you want approval, you want validation, or you want to, you know, feel attention, you know, and if that's where you're getting your self-worth, we're on pretty shaky ground, right? We're dependent on what others say, do, think about us for our own sense of self. And that seems to me very out of balance.
Yeah. I don't think too many people go on dating apps with like super clear intentions, even knowing what their own intentions are or what they really want. They're just going to hope to find the one. I mean, I know I've heard women talk about they make sure they just go on a date a week. It's like a numbers game. You know, even if they don't feel like it, they're still going to go on a date a week. And then it's just so time consuming and addictive. You know, the notifications that come up and, you know, the next day seeing the matches, even for me, even for someone who was like not really into that, I was like, oh, let me like see who the new matches are, right? It didn't even seem real. It was just like almost like a way to kill time.
Yeah, and to give myself some dopamine, right?
Yeah.
Feelings of excitement or whatever, or connection. But they were, again, as I was saying before, it was like hollow, very hollow.
Did you notice that you were less productive in other areas of your life during this time?
You know, well, I experienced that it was consuming a lot of my time. It was consuming, you know, maybe an hour a day, maybe more.
I was going to say that's it.
But like I said, you know, I was only on it for maybe a month and a half-ish. I never made a connection with anybody. I did chat with a few people a few times, but there was nothing that I could really connect with in a way that was deeply meaningful to me that made me want to pursue that further. And so, you're a very attractive woman. And so, I found it, I was surprised when you said you went on these dating apps, but then saying like what your lifestyle is, it makes more sense. So you're not getting out much. You're not like, let's say, out there in the social settings of your community. So how do you meet people? Right.
Yeah.
And then it brings up this fear, right? Like I got to do something, I got to make it happen, or I'm not doing enough, or maybe I'm not good enough. Right. And all those fears start to get generated. And then if we act on those, then we're just kind of reinforcing them. But you did it as an experiment. You tried it for a short period of time. What was some of your experience? Did you actually connect with people? You went on some dates, right?
I did go on some dates. So one of the gentlemen I went on a date with, we went skydiving, and that was fun. But we also went on a second date, which both times I was in charge of planning everything.
You went skydiving on the first date with this guy?
Yeah.
Wow.
But so all of it was just my idea, and I noticed that I didn't want to repeat that pattern because my other relationship was kind of like that too, where I had to like set up everything or we wouldn't do anything. And it was like super triggering to me to even like have to see that again. So I was like, no way.
Before you go further now, I want to stop for a second because that points to like some of the issues that we talk about and that we work with our clients as well, which is, this embodiment and the embodying the masculine versus embodying the feminine and how to balance these two, right? And so if you were the one setting up the date, making all the arrangements, that would be like more of what's considered the masculine role. And beyond speaking man and woman, we're just talking about energies here because we all have masculine and feminine energies within us. But it seems like you identify as, or you're definitely, my feeling of you is that you are a feminine identified woman, that you are more in touch with the feminine, although you're balanced. Myself, I'm, the polar opposite of that. I'm more identified with my masculine and still balanced in my feminine. But the difference between those traits, play out in these scenarios. And if you had to be you basically, you kind of had to be the man, play the man's role.
Yeah, been there, done that.
And did you find that empowering or
unattractive? No, I found it really draining. I found the lack of container that was provided for me in the relationship made me feel like I was responsible for absolutely everything. And it definitely put me way out of balance with my own feminine energy. And that's something that's taken me a while to re-embody and to get back, because I just like stuffed her down so much, or just kind of like ignored what she was needing in order to be able to continue in this relationship that I was in. And so as soon as I saw that from somebody else again on the dating app, even though it could have just been a projection from me, but even once I saw or felt into a little bit of that, I was like, no way.
Not wanting to repeat that. But
yeah, no. So I mean, it is good for that. It is good if you are like becoming conscious of your patterns, and it's a good tester to see like if you'll continue that pattern or if you'll stop it. For me, that was kind of what I got out of the experience. There were a few men that I probably could have like continued on with and dated. And I remember when I was speaking to a psychic a couple of weeks after, we were talking about, she was telling me how there's like definitely someone in my field, and my grandpa was like really proud of me because I didn't decide to go forward with any of those men. So I was getting like affirmations from everywhere that like the dating app was not the way to go. And it just felt so icky. It felt so desperate, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I remember watching a recent episode of Russell Brand's podcast, and that's what he was talking about. He brought up the dating apps and, during the pandemic, and he says, people are bloody desperate. That was his comment on that. It's like, that's why they're out there on these apps, is because we're starved for connection again. And
yes,
the idea of these apps provides hope. But hope for what? And what is out there? And what did you find? So you had some other dates, though. Any horror stories? That one didn't sound like it was too bad. Just not really what you were looking for.
So not really any horror stories. I went into it with the intention and just the belief that there are a lot of really good men out there. So I was kind of holding that. And even though I didn't find anyone that I wanted to date, I didn't really run into any like real horror stories. I mean, there was one person in the beginning that I talked to that kind of like assumed that I would date them and their life was a mess. But I mean, there was no horror stories.
Okay. Well, you're one of the lucky ones.
Yeah, I think so. I got out in time.
And, for me, I started to realize that, like I said, there were some things that was bringing up in me, and I started to realize some of my own insecurities were coming to light. And I started asking myself, why am I on this app really? Why am I really on this app? If I look deep inside, do I feel like I can't make a connection with my current life situation? Or am I really not putting myself out there? Am I approaching people in real life that I'm interested in, talking to them, striking up conversations? And the fact of the matter was I wasn't doing that nearly as much as I could have. I had plenty of opportunities to meet people and connect with people, but I wasn't exploring them and I wasn't pushing my boundaries of my comfort zone. And I realized that if I stay on the apps, it also starts to breed in this kind of furthering of my self-doubt. Like, why am I not matching with somebody? Shit, like my friend over here, he was on that app for a week. This person I know, they're on that app for a week. Now they're in long-term relationships and they're happy. What's wrong with me? Okay, so maybe I need to present a different image, fix myself in some way. And I really didn't think that was the case. I thought that, I just felt the energy of the whole experience and I didn't like it. And so I just said, I'm going to get off these things, delete them all. And I'm just going to do some experiments, some social experiments, and see what kind of connections I can generate that way. But it was a process for me, for sure. And, I went through my own stages of loneliness and disconnect and just feeling like something was missing from my life. And those were all things that I had to face within myself, overcome and transform. And if I was just constantly swiping, it also doesn't ever give me an opportunity to face that stuff and overcome it. I'm thinking that the solution is going to be maybe in the next image that comes up before me. But the real solutions are always inside.
Definitely. Yeah, I feel like, a lot of times with the loneliness epidemic of our current culture, people are looking for something outside of them to make them feel whole and make them feel fulfilled. And while we do need connection in our lives, it is super duper important. I feel like if more people went into a relationship consciously, first of all. So many people just enter into relationship just without even like thinking about it. Like, wow, yeah, I found someone that actually likes me, without actually thinking if they really like the person. It just seems so unconscious. I know I just said that word, but that's really all I could think about.
Yeah, and it's coming from the kind of this mindset of, well, I'll take the best that I can get, versus I deserve the best.
Right. Or you have so many choices that you just never settle on one. You're like, oh, well, it could be Brad, who's an IT guy and likes to, I don't know, go horse riding on the weekends. Or then there's like this guy who's like a yoga teacher and really nice, but then he's kind of like, so you have all these extra choices, which makes it like really easy not to commit to any of it.
Yeah, it's like this whole overload, the quandary of choice, right? That paralyzes us. And so, and also it's like there's overwhelm in the sense of, you know, if I'm going to have to go out on this many first dates, you know, and it's like I have to go out on a date to actually meet the person in real life to see if there's attraction or connection and then move forward. And I have a friend of mine who has been struggling with this for a while. And he talks about how much time he's been wasting meeting these people and going on first dates and they don't go anywhere. And I was just saying to him, you know, part of the reason I think is because it's difficult to get a read on somebody unless you have a live interaction with them. Like even like Zoom is pretty good because you can see someone's body language. You can hear their voice tonality.
Yeah. You can get a very good read for their energy. It's
a lot, but it's not nearly as good as meeting somebody in person. And if I meet you in person and we have an interaction, I'm going to know, and you're going to know if we want to move forward with that. Like there's, you know, we don't know how much further, but there may be an interest in finding out more. And I've eliminated the whole time waster of having to go on a first date and, you know, take that time out of my schedule, make that arrangement, invest myself, my time, my energy into this experience in the hopes that there'll be a connection. And if I've done that 10 times and I haven't had a connection yet, it's pretty discouraging.
Yeah, and it could get expensive too.
Yeah, it's expensive. Go out on that many dates.
Yeah, just exhausting. I hear of a lot of people getting like super burnt out on it.
Yeah, this one of the statistics I was looking at, you know, was that this choice overload can lead to this endless cycle of match and rejection as well. So you're either getting your hopes up that it might be something or you're feeling rejected because it didn't work out.
Wow, that's got to really raise your cortisol levels.
It does. You know, they've also found, and this is from Dr. Katherine Jackson, that denial of touch leads to a decrease in serotonin, dopamine, and oxytocin, as well as a rise in cortisol. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Like we need this human connection, but if what we're getting from what we're seeking is the opposite, right? Then there's a problem in our strategy that we maybe need to look at.
Yeah.
Another question I had for you, and I mentioned this prior when we were talking just before the call, was, you know, as far as attractive masculine traits, you know, attractive feminine traits, if we're looking at some of the major ones, what ranks highest for you in the attraction scale? What qualities do you find that are most attractive in a man?
Confidence, humor, assertiveness. Like, I don't want to have to be asking the guy out.
Sure. And again, we've talked about that. That's not necessarily your role as the feminine embodiment in the relationship, right? Not that you can't do it, not that you're not capable of it.
Yeah.
It's just, it doesn't make you feel like a sexy woman to be making the plans and taking care of the details, right?
Right.
And so the first thing you mentioned was confidence. And this is something I tried to stress to people. You know, the men I work with, a lot of them were on dating apps, and a lot of them, since we've had these conversations, have gotten off of them because of the simple fact that I reiterated just what you said. The number one trait that you find attractive in a man, and this is across the board, my research has shown that this is the number one trait that all women find most attractive about a man, is confidence. Now, how much confidence am I displaying by swiping right on the screen? You know, am I really being bold and courageous when I do that? But that's how I'm reaching out. That's my approach. My approach is doing something which in no way tests my confidence. It in no way stretches my...
Or your courage.
It doesn't display courage. It doesn't take vulnerability. It doesn't take strength. It could take horniness, neediness, unfulfilled desire, looking for a victim, predatorial nature, right? Any of that stuff. Or you could be confident and swipe right, but it doesn't display that. It doesn't display any of that. It doesn't display any characteristic that's desirable. It just, it's just like...
Yeah. I feel like men kind of have it hard on dating apps because, like, what do they really do? Like, Bumble has it set up to where the woman has to message first, but then that kind of, like, shifts that polarity. But then when men do send a message, it's like there's so much pressure on them to send, like, the perfect thing because they know that, like, there's, like, thousands of other guys messaging the same girl, especially if, like, she's super attractive, right? That's
another great point too, is that when you actually get beyond the dating apps, you put yourself in the category of men that is extraordinarily elite. And what I've found, another statistic that I've sort of been finding through this research, is that it's less than 10% of men that will approach a woman they're attracted to with intent. Less than 10%. I think it's about 5%.
Wow.
And of that 5%, we got to figure at least 3% of those guys are creepers or assholes. You know what I mean? Like, that's just what the statistic would be. Like, the number of guys that are approaching is very small, but of that percentage, there's a small number of ones that I think that are actually, decent guys that someone like you might want to date. I mean, that's a projection. I could be wrong. But again, the number is very small in the guys who are just willing to step out there and be bold and be courageous and be vulnerable and take a risk in approaching someone and striking up a conversation. And so if you're able to do that, instead of being one of thousands on these apps, you have to say everything right, say just the right text and be witty as fuck. You don't have to do all that because you've already put yourself into an elite category of men.
Yeah, I agree. Hold on. Yeah, it just seems like that's, like, kind of a lost art nowadays.
Yes.
Nobody does that anymore, really. Like, talks to a girl they see at the grocery store or a guy or whatever. Maybe they do, but it just seems like so many people are on online dating, and that's why there's, like, this pressure to get on it, because you're like, well, that's how everybody's doing it. And if everybody's doing it like that and I'm not doing it like that, this is why I probably, like, I'm not really finding anybody. But then it's like, well, if everybody's on the dating app, there's got to be, like, conscious men on the dating app, right? So there's just, like, all of these, like, projections and beliefs. And I agree, like, there have been success stories, but a lot more horror stories that I've heard, coming from both men and women.
So I said 3% are creepers or assholes, and maybe that's being, too narrow-minded. But there's also people who really just don't know how to approach, and then maybe they come off as creepy or weird.
Yeah.
Because they don't have any practice in socializing, and then the way that we've been living the last few years, our practice capacity has shrunken tremendously. And so, as I was going through the following year after my dating app experiment, I did date someone that was an ex-girlfriend of mine. We dated for about 4 months or so, and then that ended. And then so I was single again. And, I thought about going out and starting to date, but I realized I still needed to do some work. I still had some healing to do from that relationship and also from prior stuff that I wanted to deal with. But the only problem was I was fucking feeling lonely, and disconnected. And it was really making me think Like something's missing in my life and maybe something's wrong with me.
Yeah.
So, man, that was like, that was tough for a little while. But what I ultimately realized, which I'm so incredibly grateful for, this realization has like totally revolutionized my life, and since I've had it, which is that it wasn't a relationship necessarily that was missing from my life. That's not what was wrong with me, if you will, right? But it was this simple fact that I was disconnected. I was lonely and disconnected from humanity, from people, from my community, from my peers and friends and family. And it was partially as a result of the pandemic, partially a result as the fact that where I was living, partially the result that I wasn't in contact with a whole lot of people. And it was really, really wearing on me. And so I decided to start getting that handled. I said to myself, you know what? The problem is I'm lacking connection in my life. I'm lacking genuine human connection. And that's what I'm going to focus on. That's what I'm going to figure out. How can I, rise above the current climate, social climate that we're in? And, so many people think that you shouldn't approach people in public. Like people are just going to be off-put by it because of the current climate and things and the health issues and such. But I said, you know what, that's a belief. That's a belief, and I don't necessarily have to buy into that because I don't feel that way. In fact, I enjoy meeting new people. I enjoy it, especially if they're really, high-vibing, conscious people or people that I share something in common with. So I just decided as an experiment, I'm going to learn new ways to approach people, to meet people, to branch out and make new connections without necessarily the agenda of forming a relationship or making a romantic connection or, finding attraction and things like that. I figured that's all stuff that's secondary. Let me just go for the connection first and see what happens. And like the most profound thing happened inside. The shift that took place was mind-blowing to me. I couldn't believe how different I started feeling once that disconnect was gone. Now, I wasn't in a relationship. I wasn't even dating anyone, but I didn't feel lonely anymore. I didn't feel like something was missing from my life.
Yes. Yeah, I've gotten to a point too where it's like just kind of letting go and being like really, I just really do enjoy being in my own energy. So if anything, whether it's a partner, a business opportunity, friendships, like I'm noticing like the more that I'm holding that intention, the less that I will have anything in my life that's not in alignment with, my highest purpose and not in alignment with what I want to manifest in my life.
Well, like attracts like, right? So if I'm feeling, needy, insecure, or like lacking confidence, and I'm trying to get on a dating app, or even I'm trying to date people, and I haven't resolved these issues within myself, right? Then what am I going to be attracting?
The same thing, basically. You're gonna be attracting people that are gonna propel you into solving those issues probably in a painful way.
Yeah, with unconsciousness, yes.
Yeah. And a wise shaman once told me that we can learn all the lessons we need to learn without pain.
That's great. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can. Doesn't mean we will.
No, probably not.
Possible.
But it's possible. It was nice to know that it's truly possible.
I mean, that's wisdom, right? We can look at other people's mistakes and learn from them. I wasn't that lucky.
Yeah, me either.
I had to learn the hard way for many years, but eventually I think I started waking up to realizing that what you just said is true. Jump on. Let's talk about a couple of the other problems that have come up that we've noticed. And one I'll mention is this whole idea of ranking people according to a number system. Now, I don't know how much girls do this as much as guys, but I see guys do this all the time. And it really kind of sickens me. It makes me feel bad for them and bad for the women that they're viewing as a number. And, one of my friends that I talked to about this, he's always searching, he's always on dates, and he's always having trouble making connection, and he's never really fully satisfied. There's always something missing, but he keeps telling me, like, I want a woman. I tell him, what kind of woman are you looking for? And he says, I want an 8.5.
What is that?
And I'm like, dude, this is part of the problem right here. This is a major part of the problem, because you're not even seeing a person, you're seeing a number. So what does that mean? You're just basing whether you're basing your attraction solely on her looks. And yet you've not been able to have a successful, happy relationship or connection with any of these people. Why do you think that is? The reason is because human beings connect on values. We don't connect on numbers or looks alone. There has to be something deeper. It can make an initial connection for sure, and it's important to be attracted to someone physically. But what then? If what we're really going for, if what we really want is human connection, not just some meaningless hookup, then we got to look deeper than just the surface, right? We got to find out about this person. Are their values compatible with mine? What are their beliefs? What are their aspirations in life? What do they feel about their role in the relationship? What are they like? What are their character traits and qualities? Because if I don't know any of those things, I'm just playing like date roulette, and nobody got time for that.
It's hard to find those things by just looking at a profile where someone is constructing this profile to show sides of themselves that they want to show. And that's just like regular dating too. It's the same with regular dating. If you meet someone at a bowling alley, you're not going to really see everything you need to initially. So it's kind of the same. I think it's a risk either way. It's kind of like.
Yeah, well, and people, whether they're going on dates from apps or dates with people they met in real life or just talking about people, but this whole idea that you're equating the person with a number score.
Oh, right.
Very dehumanizing.
Yeah. I think the whole experience of dating apps is dehumanizing. You're just swiping through like faces of people, and it's just going like solely, like the initial attraction is going solely on like looks alone, which is important to get you to the table, right? But I feel like there's an energy that goes with that. If you're seeing someone in person, that it would be easy to swipe by somebody that in person you would probably not swipe like away on them.
You wouldn't just dismiss.
Yeah, you would see their energy. You would see.
What's that? I hadn't thought about this, but that's a great point. It's because we become dismissive with people. Now, I've noticed myself do this in the past, so I got to be honest, and I'm just going to share this. I caught myself doing this at one point, in my past, and somebody came up and approached me and some friends just to say hi. It was a woman. She was talking to us at a music festival or event, and I was interacting with her and being friendly, and then she went to leave, and I said see you later or whatever. But in what I heard myself say, I heard this quality in my voice that was dismissive. And I recognized, and I was like, I didn't like that. Why would I be dismissive of this person? I wasn't physically attracted to her, but she's still a human being, So I recognized that my tone of voice didn't match how I really felt inside. And so I had to make a correction there. And I didn't want people to feel like I was dismissive just because, like, you're not my type, or you're not what I'm looking for, or maybe I'm in a relationship. And I feel like this is, this can happen to people in all sorts of interactions when guys do approach, or women do approach men and start to interact. And let's say there's not attraction there, but dismissing them, swiping left, if you will, in person is also very dehumanizing.
I just feel like it happens less maybe because of the dating apps, people are doing it more, and they're maybe starting to dehumanize people out in the real world because they're seeing them. Like, they're so used to seeing people and commodifying their whole experience with connections, not only dating app, but a lot of people just do everything like via live stream. If they work from home, they don't leave their house, especially during the pandemic. So I could see how it would get easy to just, treat people like the commodity, the commodified like app version.
Yes. Yeah, that's very true. And that aspect of it is one of the things that I resolved when I started going after connection. Because when I started going after connection, I didn't care who you were. I didn't care what you looked like. And this is what solved this feeling for me. This is really like crucial in my experience, is like, if you weren't someone I was attracted to, I probably wouldn't go and talk to you. And so I was being dismissive with all these other people, which also making me kind of a shallow person. When I reversed that and I started seeking, not seeking like I needed it, but I was stretching myself to make connections with people of all kinds, everywhere. The clerks at the store, people I passed on the street, people in coffee shops, people in grocery stores. Wherever I went, I'm making connections. And with my friends, with my family, I'm learning how to make deeper connections by driving down to those values, and also just becoming better at communicating, at banter, and things like that. And so what that did, though, for me was it totally eliminated the sense of disconnect. But if I was just like, well, I'm not gonna talk to anybody unless I'm interested in them. And well, it does a lot of things. Like, first of all, it's creating these imaginary walls, and it's creating that disconnect. And it's also kind of making me a shallow person. And then when I do interact with those people, they're going to feel it. They're going to see and feel and know that I'm not really present. I don't really care about them.
Or when there is someone that you're attracted to and they'll kind of like sense the ulterior motive of you seeking the connection. Yes,
that's true. That's very true. Another great point, because they'll sense my inauthenticity, right? Because I'm having to turn myself on into something to be the attractive character that I want to be, or to trigger that person's buttons or whatever. And so I'm not being my genuine natural self. But when I was just going out for connection, and I don't care if you're pretty or older or whatever, I'm still going to try to make a connection. Of course, I'm not going to lead someone on to thinking that I'm interested in them if I'm not attracted to them. But the first thing I was going for was connection. And so I just started doing it everywhere with everyone. And so then when I approach that girl that I'm attracted to, I can naturally, let her know that I'm interested in her.
Because you're already feeling fulfilled in your connection, so you're not coming from like a place of like, oh, I need this connection, so it's not really an ulterior motive.
And I'm also just getting comfortable talking to strangers, too, which is the thing for some people. It's not for everyone. Some people can just walk up and talk to anybody. For me, I could talk to some people much more easily, but approaching an attractive woman, for me, there was a lot more resistance to that. And approaching her with the intent of letting her know that I'm interested in her, right? Rather than just approaching her and be like, hey, how are you doing? How's your day? I'm a nice
guy. Oh, the nice guy. Yeah, so I know what you're saying about the piece of like talking to someone that you might not actually be attracted to. I feel like as women, we kind of have to be careful with that.
Oh, sure. For sure, because you can be potentially sending out mixed signals.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's not necessarily your fault. And I wouldn't say that you shouldn't do that. But again, I can get what you're saying, where you have to be careful. That's where women's intuition comes in handy, right? You got to learn to read people.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. I guess your friend isn't coming on. What's up?
I just texted him again, so.
Okay. I was going to say we can go ahead and start doing my part of it, but then he'll probably come right on. So
he ghosted us.
He fucking did. Ghosting. He did ghost us.
And there's no accountability.
Well, there should be, because you know him.
He could just block my number.
He could.
That was another thing that we were talking about before the call, is that when we meet people in real life, a lot of times we meet them in social settings and we may know somebody that they know. Not always, right? A lot of times we can just be approaching strangers, making a connection there. But oftentimes, even if they're a stranger, they're still in our community in some kind of way. Maybe they go to the same coffee shop, right? So they're somewhat accountable with our social constructs, right, of how they interact with us and how they behave. And so that accountability prevents that scenario of, let's say, just ghosting someone for no reason. Now, if someone's being like overly aggressive or displaying a lot of insecurity, maybe like it's a guy who's texting the girl like first thing in the morning, hey, you're beautiful, I love you so much, or like, I just want to see how your day was, just checking on you. And they're not even in a relationship. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that reeks of desperation, and it's perfectly appropriate for a woman to ghost him at that point, right? Because
I never thought ghosting was okay.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a very cowardly thing to do, and I've always like been like really honest with people online. Like, I remember the first person I met on the dating app, and I didn't tell this story, we went on 2 dates. He was a yoga teacher and a like a engineer or something. Pretty cool.
Yeah. Sounds like a catch.
Yeah, and like we went on 2 dates. It seemed okay. So the other guys that were messaging me, I was like, I'm really not going to really be on the dating app. I found someone that I kind of liked. But then he ended up having like all this relationship trauma and that he needed to deal with. But anyway, my point is that like instead of like ghosting like 5 people, I told them that I'm like going off the app for a little while. And if like, if this connection didn't work out, if they'd be open to matching again or whatever, I won't like take off their match. And most of the men that like I was super honest with, they were really like, wow, that is so rare. I really appreciate that.
I was going to say that, Lauren, you're a very conscious person. I don't think that is as common as a trait. Well, I don't say it's a trait, but I don't think what you did, most people would necessarily do. And I respect that and I value that. But at the same time, you were sort of having a connection with them. And it wasn't like they did something to violate that, which is what I was saying. If somebody's like coming at you with all this neediness, insecurity, or they're trying to control you, I don't think you owe them anything. If they can't figure it out when you stop responding, that's on them.
Yeah.
But if you can offer something to help them and you can say it in a way that might be received.
I would just say, listen, I'm not really feeling this connection anymore. I do wish you the best.
That's awesome. Yeah, I would appreciate that too, because then I'm not wondering what's going on.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I don't think I've ever ghosted anybody. I just think it's stupid. And in some groups I'm in, I see women, they're talking with this guy. He's really engaged in the text messages and excited to hang out with her, texts her frequently. And then, they sleep together and the text messages get less and less, and they're making excuses of why they can't hang out. They're not being as like open and warm and engaging, and then they just disappear.
Oh, that's what I was going to do too. I posted this question in one of my groups online, and one of the girls shared a horror story that she had experienced from online dating. And so I thought I would just go ahead and read this. Here we go. So yes, she says, and I'll keep her anonymous, respect to that, but she says, chatted with a guy who was super funny and charming on the app. This was 2012 on OkCupid, she says. And he asked me out within a few hours, bold, courageous, right? And we made a plan to get together for a beer later that week. We keep chatting on, off and on until the date. It was all great. Now I asked her if she was chatting with him via Zoom or, Messenger, or like if it was just like text, or if there was actual video involved. Probably was just texting, although she may have talked to him on the phone. It's 2012. We weren't doing video as much online back then. But that's another example of how chatting, well, we'll get to that. This will be an example of how chatting and not seeing somebody where you can get a much better read is very detrimental to, you're probably going to end up wasting time doing that. So she says, we met up at this sushi bar, but what happened with hers was worse than wasting her time. So I knew that they had great beer on tap along with a view of the ocean. Sounds like an awesome date, right? The beginning of an awesome date. Within about 10 minutes, though, he was making nonstop rape jokes. I can read a vibe. He was serious. What the hell? And so she says, as a woman, I was honestly terrified. He's 6'2" and over 200 pounds. He could have hurt her. So she got up, made her way to the bathroom. She made strong eye contact with the bartender. This is a smart girl. And she sent a text to her friend immediately to have him come by and help her get out of the situation. So she came out of the bathroom, found one of the hostesses waiting to make sure she was okay. So obviously she was sending out that signal that she was in danger or in need of support. And she was shook. She told her that I had a friend coming to save me, and she suggested I go out the back. And she happened to meet the friend and his girlfriend on the way around the corner, and she left and immediately started getting hateful and threatening messages from this guy. She says, needless to say, I didn't go back to online dating for a little while. I was too shaken. My response to her was, I'm surprised you ever went back on this.
Yeah. I know. Wow. And that is the dystopian landscape of dating apps. So I know connection is a very big piece in the work that you do. Can you tell us how you feel about the effect dating apps has on genuine connection?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. I feel that it, tends to make people move away from genuine connection. I think that the apps have made, and even online communications have kind of sterilized our communications, and they've made it so that it's harder for connection to take place. Like when I was wanting to connect with people and reaching out, I wasn't like going on dating apps to try to connect with more people that way, because there's so much that's fake there. There's so much plasticity, facade. There's a lot of just straight scammers, and manipulators and people that are seeking to do you harm. I have a former friend of mine who was scammed out of tons of money, and his experiences on that was, he let himself get taken advantage of. And then
which can be easy if you're desperate for love, right?
Connection, yeah, desperate
for connection.
Not getting it in his real life. So happy to get whatever he could get online. And then
even if it ended up costing him
thousands and thousands of dollars.
And this is more
and
common
how much time did he waste and invest too? This relationship went on for months.
Wow.
A relationship with someone who was basically catfishing him, stealing his money.
Wow.
And so that's, there's a lot of that's on there. So if I'm seeking genuine connection and I'm doing it in an environment that's filled with people that you can't tell if they're real or not. But I know if I go out into the real world and I talk to you, I don't think they have robots yet or AI yet.
Well,
I mean, who knows? We could be living in the Matrix right now.
You do know about that one AI influencer that's a robot. She lives in LA.
Yes. they're few and far between now. And I still think I would have a better chance at recognizing a phony in real life.
So are a lot of the men that you work with on dating apps?
Before talking to me, they are. Yeah. And I think after talking to me about this, I probably could see 50% or more getting off the apps. And that's just initially. And then I think over time, they all start to hear the truth in the words that I'm saying, that that's not where they're going to find the connection that they're looking for. It's also just, it's reinforcing the stuff that they want to overcome anyway. Like if they're dealing with insecurity, if their confidence has been taken because they got, because they gave their power away over years to this person, right? Until they were bereft, had no power anymore. And then that person kicked them to the curb. And now they have no self-worth, no confidence. They're insecure. Well, dating apps seem like a great place to meet somebody because I don't have to display confidence. I don't have to actually take any risks to swipe right. I have this, a joke meme that I bring up sometimes. It's like, be bold, be courageous, swipe right. No one ever said that.
Yeah, you have a good point there. So with the dating apps and just the rising popularity of them, it seems like hookup culture has just gone wild due to this. So people are looking for essentially connection, and they're finding it through very shallow sexual interactions.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is not good on so many levels.
So many levels. Energetically,
energetically is the big thing that came to mind too.
Yeah. You attach yourself to someone else's sexual energy, and you're attaching yourself to everyone's sexual energy that they're attached to, and that it's just all these cords are being created that are kind of like siphoning your life force.
You've probably heard the saying that you are an average of the 5 people that are closest to you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think that's necessarily true 100%, but it definitely bears, paying attention to, because the people we are around the most, they do influence us. Now, I don't think that makes us the average of those people, but it's going to influence our energy state, our emotions, the way we think, and all of that. And if I'm friends with somebody, or somebody in my close circle is, let's say they're a thief. Let's say they're untrustworthy, right? Well, that energy is leaking out into my life. And why am I interacting with that person anyway? What's going on with me inside? Do I recognize that? Am I blinded by that? Do I feel that's okay? And that's just on a friendship level. When we become intimate sexually with someone, we're literally mixing and blending our energies. And just like you were saying about attachments, if they have attachments, insecurities, irrational fears, trauma in their lives, we're just absorbing that stuff unknowingly and unwillingly.
Yeah.
Also,
it's a shame.
It leads to, a lack of fulfillment. It leads to emptiness, right? We're looking for something. We're looking for this genuine connection. We're hoping to get it in this random, sexual hookup. But we don't get it from that. That's a temporary thing, and it's gone. And then oftentimes, the relationships just turn over so much. We're just looking for the next thing, the next person, the next one that's going to
fill a void, right?
Yeah, distract us from our pain temporarily. And it's an addiction.
And this whole narrative is being sold now, and this is what I don't like, that women can go and sleep with whoever they want to. And this is true. Consenting adults can do this. But I really don't know anybody who is actually fulfilled by this, who is doing this and is really, truly fulfilled.
You don't know anyone who's on dating apps and saying, man, this is the greatest in the world. Actually, so I know of someone who recently was saying that dating apps were really great for them. Now, that's what they said, but if I look at their situation, what I know happened is they were in a long-term relationship with someone who treated them very poorly, broke their boundaries consistently, and they stayed with that person. They stayed with them year after year until it got so bad and the person did something so unforgivable or irreconcilable that the relationship had to end. Now, that person was lonely, seeking connection, etc., and got on dating apps, and he was able to, he's able to connect with people and temporarily assuage his pain and distraction. But, we'll see where that leads. I don't think it's led to any real lasting connection. It's just been a process of distraction.
Or people who
and validation.
Yeah, just do these random hookups. Like, I don't know anyone who's like really truly happy with that lifestyle. I feel like, people might do it because it gives them the validation they need, or I don't know, maybe it makes them feel better if they can hook up with like a bunch of different people. But really, I feel like a lot of people who engage that way with their sexuality are feeling very empty and not empowered. So there's this narrative that like doing that will empower you, and really it's quite the opposite. It disempowers you, and it takes you so much further away from the like pure like sacredness and bliss and connection that can happen in a conscious union when you engage your sexual energy to love, to manifest. And this is just like becoming like not even a thing for so many people. And I've worked with some teenagers.
Uplift others too, right?
Yeah, I wish that I could talk to about this because, with this hookup culture, it's gotten to the point where there's just so many young guys walking around with pornos in their pocket, and they think that's how it's supposed to go from the very beginning. So the courtship ritual has kind of like started to disappear a little bit in the teenage circles, with the digital age. A lot of, guys are asking girls for pictures, and I just find myself wondering what dating is going to be like for them.
Yeah, well, there's not a lot of models out there to show people what healthy dating looks like, healthy male-female interactions look like. We're not taught that in school. We're kind of left to figure it out on our own. A lot of people had, parents that were in really good relationships. Maybe the father was a strong masculine figure, the mother was, very very much in her feminine, and they had a great dynamic. And those kids kind of intuitively understand a lot of things, but those are the lucky ones. And that wasn't my experience.
Me either.
My parents were great people. They are great people, but they had their own issues they were working out. And I definitely was never given instructions from my father on how to interact with women. Never.
And do you feel like if you were, that would have helped you?
Not the meaning of a relationship, none of that stuff. It was all kind of left up to the schools and to the church to
the schools didn't do anything.
They did nothing. And the church just instilled guilt in me.
Yeah. Yeah. And so many people now are walking around with these templates of shame for their bodies and shame just like for their sexuality and shame for their fears. And religion does instill a lot of shame that we have to then like unwind to even begin to heal. And it's just so mind-blowing to me that, even people who may have had some trauma but didn't have like a super like traumatic life still has to do so much work to heal and unwind from the conditioning and the programming that has been projected onto us since childhood.
Yeah, there's, I don't think anyone is immune to it.
And so when when these men are showing up in your retreats and in your mentorship, is this usually like the first step that they're taking, or have they been on this journey? Is it kind of like a mix once they come to you?
Most of the guys that I work with on retreats, they've already had some coaching in this area. A lot of them have been through a program which helps them to recognize how they've given their power away, how they've been complicit in creating the drama, the pain, the suffering, the betrayal, all these kinds of things. And, so we want to stop being victims first and foremost, because a victim never gets what they want. They just take what they get. And they have no power to do anything except by manipulating others through pity and things like that. So first thing we have to do is get over the victimhood mentality. Now, if someone isn't over their victimhood, I don't want to see them on a retreat. They need to do some work first. That's the number one prerequisite for doing this work, is you must recognize that being a victim is not going to get you there. Now, that doesn't mean that you'll be completely free of being a victim. We can still, victimize ourselves in small ways, but it's like the bulk of the work has been done. And I recognize, at least I'm aware that, victim mentality is not going to bring me the life that I want. It's going to keep me stuck. It's going to keep me disempowered. So that's like number one. Then, we start to, like I say, recognize those patterns of behavior where we've been complicit in victimizing ourselves, and then start to make corrections there. And, the third thing is starting to get some experience with emotional release, with meditation. With a lot of guys, we have them do Qigong before they come to the retreats, which is a pretty intense form of energy work that helps us to really stabilize our emotions, to become grounded enough to where we can experience emotions, right? When we do this work, it doesn't mean we're never going to feel sad. It doesn't mean we're never going to feel hurt or grief. We're not trying to stop those feelings. What we're trying to do is allow them to express in healthy ways, or release them so that or transform them, so that we're not carrying around anger from 10 years ago. They say, I heard this said that, what's the difference between a normal person and a spiritual master when it comes to feelings? Does a spiritual master, an enlightened being, they still feel anger? And they said, oh yes, I feel anger, but it comes in a flash and then it's gone.
So it's all about learning how to take back control of your emotions.
Well, yeah, I would say control is an interesting word to use, because it's like we gain control by letting go of control.
Yeah.
And so when we let go of control feels like, I need to force the issue. I need to fix it, change it. I'm basically in a disempowered state, and I'm trying to reclaim my power. But letting go of control, releasing control, is empowering. And this is like counterintuitive until you start to experience it. Once we start to experience it in the body and in our emotions, then we realize, oh, this is true. This is actually very empowering. What I've been doing before is I've been shutting down my emotions. I've been short-circuiting my energy flows through my body. Whenever we're holding on to emotions, it's creating electromagnetic fields that block the flow of energy in our body. And if anyone's interested in this, they can look into the work of Dr. Jerry Tennant. He's got some great lectures on this. But nonetheless, when we release those trapped emotions, that energy begins to flow again, and now we have become empowered. And if all we're trying to do is control the emotions, we're keeping it locked in place. We're suppressing, we're battling with ourselves. And so we're using an inordinate amount of our own energy against ourselves. So empowerment and freedom looks like this. Looks like I'm okay with feeling whatever feelings come up, but I'm not going to blame you for them. I'm not going to allow myself to get shut down because of them, and I'm not going to be victimized by them. I'm actually going to be vulnerable and courageous enough to allow the feelings to come up. And so this comes up on retreats too, a lot of times. The last retreat, I stood up there and, I cried in front of men. One of the few times in my life that I've done it. It was so liberating because it was just genuine, and I wasn't whining. I wasn't complaining. I was dealing with some real difficult emotions that came up. And being able to be vulnerable in a group of men, for me, that was liberation.
So healing.
I knew I don't have to hide anything anymore. And that was also a very good way of setting an example for these men. That vulnerability is not weakness. Like whining is weakness, complaining is weakness, victimizing yourself is weakness, blaming others is weakness. Vulnerability is strength.
Yes, I agree 100%.
I think personally, I looked at a lot of the work of Brene Brown too. I think she's amazing. And one of the realizations that I had after exploring vulnerability a little more deeply myself was that, man, it's like vulnerability is the portal. It's the portal to every experience that I want to have. If I'm not comfortable, if I'm not okay being vulnerable, I may as well just hang it up because life is going to be very bland.
Yeah.
What are the experiences that we want to have in life, right? We want to express courage. We want to feel love. Well, if we want to feel love, we're going to have to risk some things, right? We're going to have to risk being hurt to feel love.
Yeah.
But if we know we're grounded and strong, we know that we can take it. If hurt happens, hurt's going to happen. Nobody is immune from hurt in life. So when we come into acceptance with that and we don't fear it anymore, and we're finding strength in our ability to allow ourselves to feel these feelings, it's a game changer.
Absolutely. So what are some of the results that you've got with your clients, and how has that helped them moving forward in their life?
Well, let's see. I'll give one example for sure. There's a guy who's been to the last 3 retreats as well. And his situation was, he came out of a relationship and he was really depressed when he got out. I actually, I spoke to him. I was one of the first people in our community that spoke with him and kind of brought him in, got him involved, got him, into the program, and then invited him out to a retreat. When he came to the retreat, he was just, you could see he was carrying a lot of heaviness, and he was a genuine, nice guy. This guy had very good qualities, but he's not like, he wasn't expressing as like a confident man or like a happy person, even anything like that. But you could see he was a genuine, nice person. Didn't want to hurt anybody, didn't want to burden anybody with his problems or anything like that. Didn't want to make any waves with anyone, but he also just wasn't, he was a little bland in that way, right? Because he wasn't really expressing his character, because so much of that had been robbed from him. So after coming to the first retreat, he started noticing some changes. By the time he came to the second retreat, it was a revolution. This guy on the middle of the retreat, he's talking and he's like, yeah, and this and that. And he's smiling while he's talking. And I'm like, you realize what you're doing? You're talking through a smile. He's like, yeah, I've never done this before. I was like, well, wait till you go out into your life after you leave here. You keep doing that and watch what difference this is going to make in your life. And he started going out and he started approaching people. He started demonstrating this confidence. He started talking about these things and sharing them with others. He started, telling his family members that he was not going to be the same person anymore. He didn't care what they expected of him anymore, because he was going to do his own thing and start living his life for him. His time, it's time to stop living for other people and to stop behaving in the way that you think society or the world expects you to behave, and to start discovering who you really are, what's important to you. And how do you want to express and what do you want to create in this world? He's gone on to he posted videos of him playing music online, something he always wanted to do, but was too afraid to do because he didn't want to be judged. And he's talked about this, and I've seen some of these videos, and they're quite good. And And he was like telling me one time, he's like, yeah, man, when I was up there, I was making that video. It's like, I wasn't scared. I wasn't nervous. I was having the time of my life. Felt amazing. And I listened to it back. When I watched that video back, I said, damn, that's a cool guy.
Yes. Yes. What a fucking blessing, right?
You know, this is someone now that I'm proud to know. This is someone, he's not a nice guy anymore. He's a badass. I don't mean like he's a bad boy. I just mean
I know
solid
what you mean,
motherfucker. Excuse my language. He's like a solid dude.
Awesome.
Someone that you want, someone that you don't invite to the party because he's not going to cause any waves. You invite this guy to the party because you know he's bringing the party.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet that feels so good for him to embody that.
It's a total revolution.
So if you are suggesting that your clients do not use dating apps, what do you suggest that they do? And what kind of methods have you used instead of dating apps?
Yeah, well, I would say get out into the real world and start meeting people. You know, we can connect with people in groups, you know, at events or just out in public. And so if you're not comfortable connecting with people, approaching people, let's say, approaching strangers, I tell this to guys, why are you on dating apps? Why? If you really ask yourself and you dig down deep, what's going on inside that's brought you here? Because certainly you must come across people you find attractive in real life. Why aren't you approaching them? Do you approach them? Most of the time I find the answer is no, I don't. I'm on the dating apps because when I drill down, it's because I'm afraid of approaching people. It's because I'm afraid of being rejected.
Yeah, like what if they're already in a relationship or something, right?
Yeah, or what if, what if their mom's there? What if they're in a group of people? What if they all laugh at me? You know, I don't want to be embarrassed because I'm insecure. And so those are all things that are not going to be solved by finding a relationship on a dating app. I
agree. Yeah, I did a short stint on the dating apps too, because I was working on a manifestation of bringing in a sacred relationship and bringing in a partner. And in my mind, I was like, well, there's really no way I'm going to be able to do this because I'm home all the time. And when I do go out in the world, I don't really think it's my job to approach people, right? It's just not, and I don't know. I just don't want to be the first one, usually.
Yeah. And it's not, certainly not, I don't think it's because you couldn't do it, right? It's just like, you don't necessarily want to do that.
No, I don't want to take that away from the guy, you know.
Giving him the opportunity to demonstrate his confidence.
Right, exactly. And I feel like that's kind of like, I get why Bumble does what they do, but I didn't like that about that app. I noticed that, you know, because the woman had to start the conversation first, that a lot of the times the guy never really displayed his confidence in the interactions that I've had with men on Bumble.
It's funny because I remember seeing an ad for them like years ago, and I never got on any apps until it was about a year and a half ago. I did it for like a month or two. So prior to that, I had like kind of like no experience. No, you know what? That's not entirely true. I think I tried OkCupid like maybe 10, 12 years ago. Again, it was like for another month or something like that. But
so
well, let me finish answering that last question though, because I think there's still more. So what do I do and what do I recommend people do?
Yes,
so
yeah.
First and foremost, if we're not approaching people in real life because we're insecure, we got to fix that insecurity. What's going on there? No amount of dating, no amount of dating apps, no amount of relationship is going to fix your insecurity. That's something you have to do for yourself, by yourself.
Definitely.
On your own or with the support of a coach or something, but the work has to be done by you. Nobody could do it for us.
Yeah. I think having a coach and having guidance is so super important. I would not be where I am today without having coaches, and I hire coaches all the time.
as do I. And I think that anyone who's serious about growing in whatever area that they want to excel in, if they're not working with a coach, they're doing themselves an extreme disservice. The amount of time and energy that you can save, and also, instead of learning things by trial and error, and also just the simple fact that, when you're working with someone who has solved the problem that you are stuck in, they've demonstrated their capacity to do that. And then now you're working with them. So you're getting their downloads, you're getting their mirror neurons, and you're able to see. They have the capacity to see. Just like I said this on the last retreat, I'm like, guys, why is it do you think that I can stand up here for hours with no notes and talk directly to you and know exactly every single thing that you're going through and what the solution is, or what another potential thing to try that's probably going to help you is? It's because I've been there. I've been there. I've been exactly where you are. And so when you work with somebody who has done all those things, it's invaluable. You can't put a price on it.
Yeah, I definitely resonate more with the coaches that have, and the teachers that have really like been through it and have risen above it and are now kind of like just sharing those same teachings of what helped them. Yeah.
And you got to look at the motivation of the coach too. There are definitely some out there that are going to tell you they've overcome this problem, but maybe they haven't. There's a lot of like financial coaches, for instance, they're trying to get rich off giving people financial advice when they really haven't done anything to create wealth themselves other than give this advice. It doesn't really work. And so that's something that, we have to use our due diligence and check and, really feel into that relationship and make sure that we found someone that we resonate with, that we can respect and trust. And we know they're trying to take advantage of us. Sometimes they're not even trying to take advantage. They're just like, they're trying to do this, but they haven't really licked it themselves yet. They're trying to embody others, but they haven't embodied it fully yet. And that's like kind of the peril of this fast-paced society we live in, where everyone wants to be an expert without really doing the work.
Yeah.
Well, when the people who... And they really understand your problems, that's a really good way of gauging whether or not they've overcome this.
So how can people find you if they want to work with you?
Well, my website is koharalan.com, KOHARALAN.com. They can look there. Also, I'm sure we'll put some links in the description.
Yeah, I'll add all the stuff in the show notes.
You can find me on social media. I'm on Facebook. I will generally accept friend requests, or if you message me first and let me know. Like I had a guy yesterday message me, hey, just subscribe to your channel. Wanted to learn more about what you're doing, and now he's a client of mine. So that's pretty cool. So by all means, you can find me there, and I'm happy to speak with people. I usually, I go above and beyond to try to help people out, whether they're my clients or not, because I enjoy it. And also it often leads to them, getting some benefit. And even if they don't work with me personally, they might refer somebody to me later. This is my life's work. I love doing this work. I'd be doing this whether you paid me or not. But it's definitely my mission and my vision. So I'm happy to help. I'm here to help. This is what I love to do.
And you have a retreat coming up in March, right?
I do. It's coming up real soon.
On your farm in Maine?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Central Maine. It's going to be 5 days. It will be an incredible experience. We're going to do yoga, qigong, meditation. There will be guided meditations. So there's going to be some lectures so that you guys really understand on an intellectual level why this stuff is so important, which tends to motivate us to really start to do the work when it makes sense and we can see like the vision and the pitfalls and the pathway. Then that is inspirational. So, they've just been getting better and better. And, without trying to sound braggadocious or whatever, the work that we're doing and the quality of the processing and the retreats themselves has just been elevating each time. So I'm super excited because it seems like that's just a trend. They're just getting better and better. I have a 50% return rate on my retreats. So what I mean by that is like half the people that come to retreat, like half of those people will come back to the next one. Then those retreats half of those men will come to the next one. So it's like people keep coming back. They keep coming back. Why is that? Well, it's not because it didn't work the first time. It's because it worked, and they want more of that.
Beautiful. It's such great work that you're doing. And you also, for those who aren't really maybe ready for the retreat yet, you do have a free Facebook group where you hold group coaching. How often is that? Once a week?
Yes. So I do have a group called Empowered Masculine, the new breed of world changers. And so you can also find that on Facebook. And if it's something that you want to learn more about, we discuss, 8 levels of masculine empowerment and how to embody them each. We also talk about the 8 core issues or fears that we all have to overcome in order to embody this. And then there's a pathway and a process for overcoming each of those. So
I love that.
Pretty rad.
Well, I hope all of the right men that need this kind of healing hear this and seek you out and get their healing on, because I feel like it's just such a necessary thing in our world today. And it's just so in my heart to hold space for men in that intention.
Well, all right. Awesome. And I'm sure we'll be connecting on more of these. It's a great conversation, and,
absolutely.
We'll have a lot more to talk about in the future. So thanks again. So we've come to the end of our time now, I think, but this has been an incredible conversation. I've been wanting to talk about this more and more and really bring some light to the subject. So thank you so much for giving us the woman's perspective on this as well. And thanks for sharing your insights and your experience. It's been truly amazing. And also, I know that you have a practice as well where you're working with clients. How can people reach out to you if they'd like to find out more about what you do and maybe work with you?
Yeah, so my website currently, I'm in the process of rebranding, but right now my website is mindsculpthypnosis.com, which it's spelled a little differently than it sounds, so I'm sure we'll add it down in the notes. But you can also find me on Instagram, LaurenVanVajra, or Facebook, LaurenVandergrift. And I like to work with women to just help them break past any of their limiting beliefs, anything holding them back from coming here and just shining their light onto the world.
Ah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
You are definitely doing it. Your light is shining quite bright.
Thank you.
All right. So thanks so much. And look forward to speaking with you again, Lauren. Take care.
Yes. All right. Have a wonderful night.
Thanks so much for watching. We'll catch you soon.